Hi, Steve.
Hi,
Well,
Alex.
thanks for again agreeing to do this interview, or I just think of it really as a conversation. Of course, we've been working together for some time, to say the least, and there's a lot to be said about your journey, to the next chapter of your life. But one of the things I thought this conversation would be interesting to the viewers, I guess, is the fact that you decided to launch your own firm, post quote unquote retirement, which has been rather successful. So, really hoping to focus on that today. But before we get started, if you can tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. So I recently retired just over a year ago after a 38 year in housing, particularly in housing finance, affordable housing, advocacy policy. I had a long career, 28 years with the same employer was my home stretch. Great colleagues, great bosses, great work. I loved it. But I'd gotten to a point where I was able to retire, but I didn't want to do a full stop.
Yeah.
And so that's what led me into consulting. And I think of it, Alex, as kind of landing a plane. If you're flying to 40,000 feet, it's kind of abrupt if you bring it all the way in for a landing. So I decided to bring it down to about 20,000 feet, or at least that was the goal. And we'll talk about that. Try to lessen the work and just still stay engaged with my contacts of an extensive network and do rewarding work that's mission oriented with good clients. And I've been doing that. It's been a little bit of a challenge finding the right balance at first, but I think I've finally kind of hit it on. At least I hope so.
And we're gonna dive into all of those things today. Again, I have a list of questions here, but kind of starting from the beginning, so to speak. I mean, of course, again, we talked about all of this in the past, but how did you plan for something like this? I mean, obviously, well, maybe I shouldn't be saying obviously, but it's not something that you just woke up in the morning and said, "Oh, I'm gonna do this." Like, how long did it take you to plan for a transition of
Yeah,
this
well,
of
thank
this
you.
nature?
So first of all, you've been immensely helpful through the whole journey, making me feel financially prepared. And one of the things I really like about you, Alex, is I'm not just a balance sheet to you. You take a holistic look at my life and what I want, and you've been a great partner and provided an invaluable perspective. So thank you. So I was at a point financially where I was prepared to step away. And as you know, I had the option of completely stepping away, but I didn't want to do that. I think I'm too young to do that, and would get restless.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I started to reach out to some friends who had transitioned into consulting to kind of pick their brains. And it discreetly mentioned to a couple of people that I was planning to retire and I'd be interested in doing some consulting. And through that network, one of the CEOs who knew me came to me and said, "Look, we have an engagement. We'd be interested in talking to you. And could you, in fact, start before you retire?" It was going to be 2 months before I had planned to retire. And I went to my CEO and our general counsel and got special permission to do that. It was a West Coast financial institution. So I was able to do the work on the weekends or late in the evening and not conflict with my day job, if you will. So I had a client lined up and ready to go before I officially retired. That helped. And then right before I announced retirement, another CEO came to me. So I had two clients right out of the gate, and that helped a
Yeah.
lot. That gave me a good platform. And then I added a couple of more. Um, the biggest challenge was maybe I added too much too quickly because then I found myself working a lot harder and longer than I expected.
Well, again, there's just so many questions I have to add. My quick comment here is something to be said about perhaps obviously the power of networking, especially when you've been in a certain organization or industry for many decades. And that's what I, in some sense, hear from our clients, sometimes directly or indirectly. They're afraid of just stepping down and losing all of that. And perhaps this is one way of staying connected to, again, have your own firm and stay engaged that way. So my next question, again, maybe we'll go back and forth here a little bit. So far, at least after, I guess, what, over a year of managing your own firm, what's been the most rewarding part of that for you?
Well, first of all, I really like the clients I work with, and it's been intellectually stimulating.
Yeah.
So it's the relationships that the fact that I like to fix things and build things, and the kind of work I'm doing is really around problem solving, strategy, and leveraging my network. I've gotten into new areas. So one of my clients is a startup in the artificial intelligence arena, kind of doing stuff around
Yeah.
affordable housing, community development with artificial intelligence. And that's been fascinating because I didn't know that much about artificial intelligence. And then another client is focused on homelessness, and that's an area that's always been an interest in a certain thing that I care about a great deal, but I've never kind of waded into that. I've been in the housing space. And if you look at homelessness and housing, there's this interesting intersection, and that's where I'm bringing some value to this client. But it's really, I've been able to maintain my contacts, learn new things, and feel like I'm contributing to the causes I care about.
That is just so incredibly important. Steve, I'll tell you, so many of our clients and just people in general, like I talk with them sometimes, play tennis with, they have skills, they have experience to contribute, and they want to continue contributing, but perhaps not in their existing, 9 to 5 type of environment, sometimes even longer. So launching your own firm clearly gives you that option, like you said earlier, to work with, people or I guess groups or firms that you really enjoy working with, or specifically mission oriented issues. This is great. So a related question to this, but in some sense the opposite of that, what's been the most challenging part so far after the first, again, year or
A
so?
couple of pieces. One, it is an iterative process setting this up. So you get your legal counsel, you get your LLC established, you get your technology. Just having the time to work through those issues. And I'm not a tech person, so my tech support team has been my daughter, my wife, my daughter's boyfriend. Um, and I was spoiled for 28 years because I had access to great tech experts. And if I had a problem, even on the weekends, they could fix it in a matter of minutes. And so having to learn on my own or call on friends for favors to fix tech issues. But I think a bigger issue is the psychology, the mindset, the shift, right? So you go through years of having a routine. I would get up early,
Yeah.
beat the traffic downtown DC, be in the office, had my structure, had my network, and all of a sudden I have to invent a new structure, a new routine, right? And there's more to that than people realize, and it took me some time to kind of figure that out because I was so used to doing things a certain way, and suddenly I've got unstructured time, and I have to figure out how to juggle my commitments. And with clients, you're kind of at the beck and call. When they need you, you have to make yourself available by and large. But I will tell you, I learned I can say not now or no to certain things, and that took me a while. Um,
Hmm.
so it's an iterative process, and there are going to be things that you're not good at because that's not my wheelhouse, technology, administration, those pieces. So you got to figure that out as you go along. And then just the mindset, the shift of that you're on your own and you've got to figure this out.
Yeah, Steve, I mean, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I went through that transition of sorts a couple of years ago. It was much more structured to begin with, but perhaps less structured than what it used to be. I guess I'll put it that way. But that, by the way, again, this is just a comment from me, applies to even a regular retirement, because very many people, they just decide to retire on January 1st of year X, and then they realize, oh wow, that 9 to 5 is gone. Driving to DC is not there anymore. What is it that I'm gonna do with all of this time? So there's that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that there are certain things I do miss, but there's
Okay.
more that I don't miss, right? I don't miss the commute. I don't miss being stuck in certain meetings for long periods of time on things that I really didn't find that useful. So by and large, it's been a plus, but it's just trying to figure it out. That's a challenge.
Well, and that's, again, great, great to hear. And in some sense, I wouldn't expect anything else because it is different. It's new. I mean, and it's expected to be that way.
Yeah.
So, well, so kind of switching gears here a little bit, and maybe talking a bit more on a personal side, obviously not too personal. I do remember in one of our meetings, maybe the last one, you mentioned that now it feels less like retirement and more like work. And you mentioned something along those lines earlier. So do you still feel that way? Do you feel like, again, it's just temporary? what's your plan for that?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I said yes too often early on, took on a lot, and suddenly was really kind of working full time again. And I've been pruning back. So one of the clients, after a year-long engagement, we decided not to continue it. And there's another client that's going to end at the end of this year. So I'm trying to narrow it down to the work that I really enjoy the most, and it gives me the ability to do a really good job for the clients, but not feel like I'm having to think about work constantly. And I was in that place right after I retired with clients that just it was a lot of work. And I probably should have been a little more thoughtful in how I ramped up. I said yes too often.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, understandable. And kind of leading with that, of course, in terms of your own plans, travel plans, as an
Yeah.
example. I know you enjoy traveling, and Paige doesn't work any longer. How do you coordinate that? Like, because it's relatively common, Steve, by the way, even outside of this situation, when one of the spouses continues to work and the other one works part-time or, doesn't work any longer. How do you coordinate something like that?
Yeah. So I'm fortunate I've built really good relationships with my clients. I mean, relationships really are the key to my business, right? I've
Yeah.
been hired because of my network. As much as who I know is what I know. But I can say to my clients, look, I'm planning to take some time off. I'm going to unplug. I'm going to do it here during this period of time, and I get everything kind of ready before I go, and then, kind of do some cleanup work when I get back. But it's just about communication and transparency, and people understand that you have other things you want to do in your life. And I'm not a full-time employee for them. I'm a
Yeah.
consultant, right? So they
Mhm.
should expect that I'm gonna need some time for myself occasionally. So it's worked out. I've just been really transparent with the clients about what my plans are.
Well, and that again makes perfect sense. There's got to be some flexibility because again, you pretty much already transitioned, and you need that to continue. Actually, that is perhaps again one of the primary reasons why at least some people decide to do that. So again, they have more flexibility.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess my last question here, again, for those who are listening to our conversation today and perhaps considering doing something similar in a year or two, what kind of advice would you be willing to provide to them?
Yeah, so talk to people who have their own consulting firms who've gone through this transition, but ask them about the emotional journey. So I talked to a couple of people, and they did a great job laying out the mechanics of what I needed to know legally, and the accounting and the tech support. But nobody really told me that how much of a challenge it really is to kind of shift your mindset, start to manage your own time. Your identity's changing. It's like
Uh,
any significant life event. When you become a parent, your whole routine changes, your identity changes, your priorities change. Or when your parents are aging, you have different priorities.
yeah.
And it's the same things. It's not just the mechanics, it's dealing with the emotional journey, right? Of trying to reestablish your identity and your sense of worth and what you want to do and how it aligns with your values, right? It's really about our purpose and meaning. And I like to do certain types of work, and I've been continuing to do that. But I've had to learn how to do it along the way in terms of just managing that emotional transition. It's not like you just flip a switch.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredibly valuable, Steve. Again, like I'm listening to all of this, and that's again, in some sense, what I went through again a couple of years ago. It wasn't any kind of technical issues, or not administrative. I mean, we had that in place already, but yeah, the emotional side of things, when you realize, like many people are looking forward to that. I want to be in charge. Well, now you're in charge. Now is no one else to blame. Now it's essentially only you in some sense and your partner. So yeah.
You get all the good stuff, the excitement, the adrenaline rush, but with it comes the anxiety, the uncertainty. It's part and parcel of the human condition when we go through change, and growth and comfort can't really coexist, right? If you want to grow, you're going to have to do some things that are uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and you just have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and that would, just that would be my advice to somebody. Talk to people you really trust, you have an authentic relationship with, who've gone through this process, and ask them to describe what it was like for them emotionally and psychologically, not just the mechanics.
Well, Steve, this is incredibly helpful. In fact, you just gave me a good title for this video. We're going to title it Comfortable Being Uncomfortable. That's going to be the title for this recording. Well, again, thanks so much
Thank you,
for doing
Alex.
this. I really appreciate it, Steve.
Thanks for everything over the years. You've been a great partner. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Take
Thanks so
care.
much, Steve.
Bye-bye.